Hi, welcome to a very special Christmas edition of Crafting a Story with Miss Nikki and Benny. Today we're going to read the story The Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg, which won the Caldecott Award in 1986, and then we're going to make a Polar Express themed snow globe with paper plates. Enjoy the story and craft. The Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg, winner of the Caldecott Medal in 1986. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friends said I would never hear, the ringing of Santa's sleigh. "There is no Santa," my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand, and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and as rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed we would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the Great Polar Ice Cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first we saw no elves. "They are gathering at the center of the city," said the conductor. "That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you." "Look," shouted one of the children, "the elves!" Outside we saw hundreds of elves. As our train grew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped and the conductor led us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and, pointing to me, said, "Let's have this fellow here, ho ho ho." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift that I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from the reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood, holding the bell high above him, and called out, "The first gift of Christmas!" The clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled above us once, then disappeared into the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked me to see the bell. I reached into my pocket. The only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose that bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it had looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents hadn't heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell. But as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all those who truly believe. The end. Okay, so to make our Polar Express snow globe, we need a few things. Templates. I made this little train. This is clip art. I just added the black part and the Polar Express. Black part we're going to cut out. I already cut mine out, of course, so there's that. You can see there's a hole. And you need a template for the base, which again I've already cut out. So there's that. You're going to need, of course, scissors, which I have over here, to cut that stuff out. And my suggestion is to get a little picture. This is my kids several years ago. They're much older now, but I kind of shrunk that down and measured the train, and I'm going to go ahead and glue them in there to make a keepsake. The snow globe itself is going to be on a blue plate. And then we have a clear plate that we're going to glue on top of it. And to do that gluing, you're going to use either a tacky glue or a hot glue gun. I'm just going to use the tacky glue. Inside the blue plate, we're going to make some snow. I'm going to use white paint. I'm going to put it on this little paper plate. And I'm just going to take cotton swab and make little dots in the plate. So that's how we're going to do that. And then you need the snow to go around it. So once that's dry, this is faux snow. I got this from Oriental Trading, but I saw a ton of it at Dollar Tree, so you can get it really cheaply. And you just need a little bit. This might even be too much. I've used a quarter cup here, but we'll see how it looks as we put it in. Then you're going to need a glue stick, and that's just to glue the train down and also to glue the picture to the train. And then, of course, you're going to need something to color the train with. So I chose these colored pencils. I'm going to do mine in red, yellow, and green. You can do them any way you want, with crayons, markers, paint, whatever. So the first thing I'm gonna do, because it needs time to dry, is I'm going to make the snow in here. You just need a tiny, tiny bit. That's probably even too much. And I'm just gonna take my Q-tip and I'm just gonna make little dots of snow. Just randomly. You could also wait and glue the train on first, figuring you can put snow on the train. I figure the little styrofoam faux snow is going to accomplish that for me. So, and just remember that more of it's going to be covered than not, so make sure you get some near the edges. I'm going to put a few up in here. I don't know if you'll actually see them or not with everything, but the tacky glue does dry clear, and we have a clear plate over top, so maybe it will work. See, I don't know if you've noticed, which I'm sure you have, but I find these ideas, and a lot of them are on Pinterest, and they work, so I figure they'll work for me. So you get me testing these guys out in real time, because I just hate to waste materials, and if it's really bad, I just would change the craft, but whatever. So that's done. I'm gonna put this aside to dry, and I'm just gonna get rid of this little paint thing. Got a tiny bit on there. And then the next thing we're gonna do is paint the templates, or I'm sorry, not paint them. I'm gonna color them with color pencils. So if you, now this part will probably be covered up. It'll probably be glued to the back of the plate, but you might want to color just in case. So here we go. So these are all colored, and this is all dry. So what I'm gonna do is, the first thing I'm gonna do is put my kiddo's picture in a little window. So the way I'm gonna do this is I'm just gonna, put the glue stick on the inside, and I'm just gonna cover the whole thing just because I'm gonna stick it to the plate anyway. So, you know, 2 birds, 1 stone type thing. Alright, so that should stick pretty good to anything. Pretty well, sorry. Okay, and I'm just gonna put my kid's picture in there. I'm gonna flip it over so that I can see that it's centered for the most part. And I just printed that on printer paper. I didn't get like a photograph or anything. And I measured with a ruler to get the size. I think it was something like 1.7 by 1.3 or something goofy. And then I'm gonna glue the train to the middle. Okay. And then the next step, I'm gonna flip that over. And we're gonna glue this to the outside. We want to make sure that we do it the right way. I think that should be good. Where it is here. I'm just going to go ahead and put the glue right on where the line is. And then I'm going to line it up so that the kids are straight on there. So that's what that'll look like. Okay. The next step is to take our little snow. We're gonna sprinkle it in. What I'm gonna do, instead of opening the top, these are really staticky and they kind of get all over the place. I'm gonna cut a little hole The bottom tip, kind of like you would do if you were baking and pasting something. And I'm gonna want to make sure when it's all down there, it's not gonna cover too much. So see, I have all this left over. I don't need it all. We're just gonna glue that on top. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take the tacky glue. You can also take a hot glue gun. That would probably be faster. But let's go ahead and just make sure you get it all over the top here. And remember, the tacky glue does dry clear, so it's not that big a deal. So we got that. And we're gonna carefully place the clear one over. And we're gonna let that dry. Now, if you do use a hot glue gun, this will dry basically immediately. But for us, that might take a little bit more time, but that's about it. You shake it up, and you got yourself a little Polar Express memento snow globe. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this special edition of Crafting a Story with Miss Nikki and Benny, and we'll see you next time. Merry Christmas!